Tonight, another energy shock for the home budget. Power prices up by 30%. Breaking news on the Lygon Street smash as a 16-year-old girl loses her fight for life. Crime out of control in Cranbourne. Residents pleading for help. Australia's submarine deal under fire as Paul Keating launches an extraordinary attack on Anthony Albanese. A scamming mum and her child sent to jail over a $180,000 rip-off. And a US drone downed in a dangerous run-in with a Russian fighter jet.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. Victorians have been dealt another budget blow in the cost of living crisis, with electricity bills set to go up by $400 a year. The 31% increase on the default price is the biggest in the nation.
A power price rise was expected, but not by this much.
It's about a 31% increase from the current Victorian default offer prices.
From July 1, a typical household bill will go up around $430 to $1,830. Small businesses can expect an increase of $1,800, paying $7,400 a year.
The main driver behind those increases is the wholesale electricity costs.
It's a devastating blow for the Victorians already at breaking point.
We already have the worst case scenario where we've got people all over the country who are giving up a roof over their head because they cannot afford the bills and they are living in cars and in parks.
Prices are going up in other states too. A 19% rise in Queensland, 21% in South Australia and 23% in New South Wales. But that pales next to Victoria, the biggest in the nation.
Our electricity bills at the moment are about $1,500 a month here. That's going to go up about $500 a month for us.
Callum Reeves now has to work out how to make ends meet for his brewery.
Obviously, the last thing that we want to do is to have any impact on our staffing or on the prices that we charge. But at the moment, you know, it's kind of a break-even kind of situation.
The state opposition wants the Premier to explain why Victorians are being slugged.
4 years ago, Daniel Andrews promised Victorians that he would reduce power prices through a default market offer.
The really important commitment that our government's made is the investment in the SEC, and we'll continue to step up that policy and roll that out.
The SEC is nothing more than a logo.
Bill paying for households and businesses isn't over yet. There could be another rise in May when the default offer is finalised.
I'd be hopeful that there wouldn't be a large movement between draft and final.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
And later in the bulletin, help to ease the power pain, a new cash bonus and expert advice. A 16-year-old girl has lost her fight for life in a tragic turn to the horror crash in the heart of Carlton. Cassie Zervos has the latest from Lygon Street. And Cassie, this is heartbreaking news.
In which the 16-year-old girl died in the Royal Melbourne Hospital late today, surrounded by her family, who were also injured in the horror smash here on Lygon Street on Saturday. She was a passenger in this Alfa Romeo when an out-of-control driver, allegedly high on drugs, ran a red light, T-boning her parents' car. The driver was arrested at the scene after police made a citizen's arrest here at the scene on Saturday. The driver has since been charged with a string of offences, including possessing methamphetamine and dangerous driving causing serious injury. But those charges are now likely to be upgraded to dangerous driving and culpable driving causing death. The driver didn't apply for bail and remains behind bars as her parents now come to terms with this heartbreaking tragedy. Mitch.
Yes, indeed. Cassie Zervos in Carlton. Thank you. Frightened locals in Melbourne's southeast are pleading for help from police to stop a crime wave. Some residents in 1 Cranbourne East Street have been forced to take matters into their own hands.
2 crimes in 3 days along the same Cranbourne East Street, and locals are fed up.
This is just out of control.
Police say a man high on methamphetamine was inside this stolen car, which collided head-on with an innocent female driver, sparking a chain reaction on Foxwood Drive.
He did a 180 and then hit the side of this car and pushed it into the tree, did another 180 and hit the back of another car.
The accused drug driver scrambled out of his car and began to flee before doubling back.
He ran and then he come back, got his phone and his crack pipe.
Leaving 3 cars written off and chaos in the family neighbourhood.
Shelley has 13-year-old boys that live with her, twin boys that are normally outside riding on their scooters, and could have ended a hell of a lot worse.
If anyone was in the blue car, he said they could have been dead.
Oh.
Locals heard the crash and called police as the driver tried to get away. A resident who lives on the street made a citizen's arrest, pinning the accused driver on the footpath before police arrived.
Grow up and learn some respect.
The second crime in the same street played out on Saturday afternoon between 2 brawling drivers, one deliberately reversing into the other before speeding off.
Just not a care in the world. They're not being made accountable for their actions in the courts, so they've got to get tough on them.
Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
Former Labor Prime Minister Paul Keating has launched an extraordinary attack on Anthony Albanese and the AUKUS nuclear submarine pact. He blasted the deal as the worst in our nation's history.
Calming his nerves with a traditional bowl of kava as he tries to calm regional fears over the AUKUS submarines deal.
Australia is investing in our capability, but we're also investing in our relationships.
Anthony Albanese enjoying the hospitality of recently reinstated Fijian Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka, who says he supports the AUKUS deal.
You want a family-first approach to security, which is our approach as well.
Though Beijing warns the deal threatens security and sparks an underwater arms race. China planning more anti-submarine jets, helicopters and missile systems, and expanding its own nuclear-powered submarine fleet.
The 3 countries have gone further down a wrong and dangerous road for their own selfish political gains.
But the first torpedo from former Labor Prime Minister Paul Keating.
For $360 billion, we're going to get 8 submarines. Right? It must be the worst deal in all history. In deep doo-doo, that's where it lives.
In a statement calling Anthony Albanese's decision the worst by a Labor Prime Minister since Billy Hughes sought to introduce conscription, labelling Defence Minister Richard Marles and Foreign Minister Penny Wong 2 seriously unwise ministers.
Our sovereignty is just being peeled away by all this.
If Paul Keating's prepared to say this in public, what is he saying to senior Labor members in private?
Richard Marles says not to act in the face of China's massive military expansion would risk being condemned by history.
Within our region, we have witnessed the single biggest conventional military build-up anywhere in the world since the end of the Second World War.
After briefing Pacific leaders and now Paul Keating's sharp intervention, Anthony Albanese flies home to consult the most important group he needs to convince on AUKUS: everyday Australians. Choosing today not to wear the signature aviator sunglasses US President Joe Biden gifted him in San Diego, a partnership now made in the shades. In Fiji, Mark Riley, 7 News.
Back home, the AFL is being hit with a second concussion class action in as many days. Tom Brown has the details. Tom, this involves potentially hundreds of former stars.
Mitch, lawyer Greg Griffin's concussion class action to be lodged in coming days is potentially much bigger than the one lodged just yesterday. The AFL tonight now facing a concussion tsunami in terms of potential litigation. You've got now 2 separate huge class actions involving up to 500 plus players, as well as 2 individual actions. This has all occurred in the space of just over a week. Now, in terms of today's, it could involve up to 300 players and includes some big names like Sean Smith and John Platten.
Oh, look, you've got the Jarmans, you've got the Plattons, you've got the Barnes, you've got the Tucks, you've got the Crackers. I mean, basically, you've actually got a list of the people that made this game. The AFL has actively gone out of its way to avoid having to come to grips or terms with the very real problem of concussion, and that's what ultimately it will have to face in the courts.
Mitch, Griffin's got thousands of hours of specific video evidence, I'm told. Separately, top lawyer Peter Gordon's been advising the AFL in regards to their compensation fund, or mooted one. He won't be acting on their defence in regards to this class action. He mainly deals with plaintiffs. And just finally, the NRL's grappling with this issue. The AFL introduced a mandatory 12-day sit-out period with concussion in 2021. Today, the NRL Rugby League announced 11 days. So they're really 2 years behind the AFL, Mitch.
Tom Brown at Jollymont, thank you. A Melbourne mother is heading to jail with her one-year-old child after scamming more than $180,000 from Medicare. The receptionist submitted hundreds of fake claims to fund a life of luxury for her and her husband.
Sarah Ward knows she'll be raising her toddler behind bars. She's pleaded guilty to rorting Medicare while working as a medical receptionist in Noble Park.
Was it out of greed, Sarah?
It has given so many of our team members in our workplace ongoing stress.
Over a year, Ward lodged 1,609 false patient claims. On average, she submitted one claim per day for her and her husband, claiming more than $3,000 a week, stealing a total of more than $180,000. She's since paid all the money back.
We thought it was very strange. She was very young, new family, mortgage, driving around in $150,000 vehicles, Gucci scarves, fancy shoes.
The court heard she won a scholarship to Caulfield Grammar and felt inadequate compared to students from wealthy families.
It's not the first time Sarah Ward has admitted to stealing money from work. In 2015, when she was an accounts clerk at Cabrini Hospital, she lodged more than $29,000 worth of false patient refund forms. For that, she avoided jail and served a community corrections order.
She's registered for Corrections Living with Mum program. Her one-year-old will stay with her at Tarrangower Prison. Ward will be sentenced on Friday. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
A man has died after being set alight in a neighbourhood dispute near Daylesford. Cameron Bowe joins us now from police headquarters. And Cameron, the alleged attacker is now facing a murder charge.
Mitch, the community of Wheatsheaf is mourning a highly respected resident. Colin Bainbridge was attacked while he and his son were doing a job for a neighbour. They'd been clearing trees from the property when it's believed a fight erupted with another neighbour. It's alleged that Colin Bainbridge was doused with petrol and set alight. He was flown to the Alfred Hospital, but sadly his injuries were so severe he died overnight. At this stage, 63-year-old Stuart Lee has been charged with murder. He refused to appear in court today, but father of three Colin Bainbridge is being remembered as a major contributor to his local community, Peter.
Cameron Bowe at police headquarters, thank you. Tensions are running high between America and Russia tonight after a dangerous mid-air collision. The Pentagon claims Russian fighter jets clipped a US drone, causing it to crash into the Black Sea near Ukraine.
The American drone was unmanned, unarmed, flying across the Black Sea on a routine surveillance mission when the Russian fighter jet swooped, much like this incident with a B-52 bomber in 2020. This time, the jet shadowed the Reaper drone, made 19 close passes, dumped fuel on it. Then
they collided with the aircraft, damaging the propeller and essentially putting it in a situation where it was unflyable and uncontrollable, so we brought it down.
The US crashing the $32 million drone into the Black Sea, stunned military officials watching the entire drama play out from a video feed.
It's clear that it was unsafe, unprofessional, and I think the actions speak for themselves.
I think this is another example of the fact that Russia doesn't play by the rules of the road, which is ultimately what the war in Ukraine is about.
Russia tells a different story, claiming the drone was flying towards its border southwest of Crimea, a part of Ukraine seized by Russia. Moscow says the drone crashed because of sharp manoeuvring. Late today, Russia's ambassador summoned to the State Department.
What will be the reaction of United States if you see such Russian drone very close, for example, to San Francisco or New York?
The US is working to recover the drone. That's if Russia doesn't reach it first. In the United States, Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
A roadside fire emergency at Sunday Creek caused major traffic problems last night. CFA units from Broadford were called to the freeway fire just after 7:30. The blaze was extinguished within 18 minutes. The Carlton Football Club has been vandalised on the eve of the new AFL season, with police called in over the late-night break-in. It adds an extra layer of drama as Melbourne gets set for a record-breaking round one.
The Blues' much-hyped breakthrough season starts with a break-in. At 3 this morning, a fire hydrant cover thrown through the window of Carlton's merchandise store. $2,000 worth of jumpers and shorts stolen.
Calls out for that Richmond person, so we're just going to go to work on that.
But no jokes about big expectations.
We understand that the narrative around that, I think what we've been really focused on is just trying to get better.
From his Tiger rival, no concerns about the MCG surface ripped up and repaired after Ed Sheeran concerts.
It's an unbelievable concert, so whatever condition it's in, don't give a shit.
From all teams today, excited impatience.
My kids can't wait to go to the footy. The expectation and the excitement for this season.
Now it's just about getting to the start line well and turn the lights on, let's go.
For Bill Perry, 4 MCG blockbusters means the busiest weekend in his 50 years as a publican. His cellar and corridors boast 310 kegs. That's 15,500 litres of beer.
Never been like this ever before. It's just amazing. Everyone's just so excited. You can feel it in the air.
For the banner-making cheer squads tonight, it's like Christmas Eve.
Super pumped. Round one at the G, 90,000+ people. It's going to be electric, it's going to be loud.
I just so want them to win because I really don't like Carlton.
One sleep to go.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
Yes, the stage is set for a blockbuster start to the new season. Tim Watson is live inside the MCG, where it will be buzzing tomorrow night. Tim, the teams are in for Richmond and Carlton.
They are, Mitch, and both teams are going to be stacked with plenty of talent for the season opener. The Carlton's team first, and the Blues have made a big call in the ruck department, going solo with Tom de Koning. Mark Pitnet is an emergency, though, McGovern and Martin included after pre-season injury niggles. The fresh faces, Blake Acres on one wing, top draftee Ollie Hollands on the other, while Lockie Cowan is the other debutant named at halfback. Richmond, no injury concerns for their premiership stars Dion Prestia and Jaden Short, both confirmed starters after setbacks last week. The two big recruits from the Giants are straight into the middle, Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper starting in the centre, while Dustin Martin has been named at full forward. Tom Lynch had one pre-season game under his belt and says he's ready to go, though. Mitch, there's a Bomber debutant as well, fresh doubt on a Star Demon, and Ross Lyon at his cheeky best. I'll see you again soon.
OK, thanks very much, Tim. Very exciting indeed. A trip for a burger has taken a wild turn in Melbourne's west. Jodie Lee has the details.
Mitch, it started in a drive-through here in Seddon and ended in road rage that left a woman seriously injured. I'll have the latest next.
Also ahead, a close call for a cyclist in the western suburbs. The race to remove a button battery swallowed by a toddler. A death-defying plane landing on one of the world's highest helipads.
And tomorrow's warm and sunny ahead of light rain early on Friday. Full details later in 7 News.
Victoria's record debt is now costing taxpayers more than $10 million a day in interest payments alone. The state is heading for a debt of more than $160 billion by 2026.
The big question I've got is, will the Andrews Labor government make sure that its spending is responsible and targeted and achieving the aims, rather than blowing out to the point where Victorians are paying higher taxes, our interest bill is going through the roof, as along with debt.
The government says its next budget will reflect prevailing economic conditions. A woman has suffered a broken leg in a terrifying road rage attack in Melbourne's west. Jodie Lee joins us now from Seddon. And Jodie, it began in a fast food drive-through.
Mitch, it was just after 9 o'clock on the 20th of February when a 33-year-old woman got into an argument with a male driver of a white Toyota. This is the man police want to speak with. His photo captured by cameras on that drive-through window. Police say after leaving the scene, the woman stopped here on Gammon Street in Seddon and approached that Toyota. And it's then alleged that the man drove towards her and collided with the woman. Now, she suffered serious injuries, including, as you mentioned, a broken leg, and was taken to hospital for treatment. Police still don't know what sparked this dispute, but they are appealing to the public for information. Mitch?
Jodie Lee at Seddon, thank you. A cyclist came off second best after taking a risk at a busy intersection in Melbourne's west. The man was hit by a car and knocked off his bike at Werribee last night while he rode across a red light. He was able to get up and walk away without serious injury. Women could hold the key to solving a looming skills crisis in Victoria's construction industry. New research predicts a workforce shortage unless there's a big push to recruit and retain female workers.
This modest 0.5% increase annually will contribute to filling 26,000 forecast vacancies in our industry.
The report recommends more part-time roles and flexible rostering to lift the number of women in construction. Australian researchers are about to start a potentially life-changing trial for people with type 2 diabetes. They're hopeful of finding a way to reduce or even eliminate the need for injected insulin.
Stephen's work is trucks. His passion is racing. To do both means regular medical checks because of his type 2 diabetes, which can cause fatigue, blood sugar highs and lows.
If the diabetes gets worse and I'm unable to control it, then potentially I will lose my heavy vehicle licence and my competition licence for racing.
He's on medication, including insulin injections.
The problem is that once you get onto insulin, there are more common issues with low blood sugars, which can be quite dangerous, but also with weight gain.
Which is driving a world-first trial of a new treatment targeting cells in the intestine which help manage things like blood sugar levels. In people with type 2 diabetes, the cells aren't working properly. This treatment inserts a catheter into the intestine using an electrical pulse to eliminate those cells, stimulating the intestine to regenerate with healthy cells that may improve blood sugar management.
The procedure could lead to potentially less medications, not being on insulin.
Offering not a cure but more control to avoid complications.
Things like chronic kidney disease, heart failure, stroke, heart attacks, amputations.
Researchers now looking for people on insulin to take part in a trial of the treatment at Melbourne's Austin and St Vincent's hospitals. There's more information at regent1study.com.au. Paul Caddack, 7 News.
A little girl is fighting for life after swallowing a button battery. 1-year-old Amity Buchanan's parents raced her to Mackay Hospital in Queensland when she fell ill, but say a doctor declared she was fine to go home. When she didn't improve, an X-ray revealed the battery.
Like an 8 centimetre burn in her esophagus. So now she's in the wars at the moment, but only time will tell how she comes out of it.
Amity is in an induced coma in hospital with her parents by her side. A Polish pilot has performed a world-first stunt, landing his plane on the 27-metre wide helipad of Dubai's Burj Al Arab Hotel, successfully landing more than 200 metres above the ground.
Dart is on bullseye. Bullseye, my friend! That was perfect! We made history, man. We made history.
He then launched the plane off the helipad, performing aerial acrobatics for the crowd. Victorians are being warned of a triple virus threat this winter. Next, what doctors want you to know. Also coming up, how councils across Melbourne are cashing in on a bin tax. NAPLAN's back early with a promise for parents, and the deadly new street drug that could be on its way to Australia. Yarra Council has voted in favour of a rubbish bin tax despite a noisy protest during last night's meeting. Rochelle Brown is in Richmond this evening. Rochelle, this means ratepayers will face an annual fee over and above their usual rates bill.
Mitch, Council has voted 6-3 in favour of a bin tax in a move that's angered locals. Private security was hired as residents lined up at Richmond Town Hall to have their say, arguing the move was a money grab as the levy will be exempt from the state government's 3.5% cap on rate hikes. The fee could reach up to $115. Councillors who voted against the decision have vowed to try to reverse it.
Been a real eye-opener for the community, and they're just going to vote them all out at the next election. It's going to be a revolution on this council come the next council election.
76 other councils have already separated their waste service charges. Yarra Council is one of the last in the state to do it. Mitch?
Rochelle Brown in Richmond, thank you. Parents are being promised clearer and earlier reports on their child's progress as annual NAPLAN testing gets underway for over 300,000 students across Victoria. The tests have been brought forward to March to allow data to be used during the current school year.
The main thing to remember is that this is not a pass or fail test. It shouldn't be stressful. Students are simply being tested on the literacy and numeracy skills they're learning every day in the curriculum.
The test is now fully online with the exception of grade 3 writing, which remains on paper. Australian authorities are on alert for a horrific street drug emerging in the United States. It's far more addictive and dangerous than heroin, and the fear is that it'll be here before we know it.
The confronting zombie-like stance of those caught in the grips of America's latest drug emergency.
Old heroin, you can go 8 to 12 hours without doing a bag. This is like 2-3 hours later, you're starting to feel sick already.
It's because under this train line in northern Philadelphia, users are openly injecting themselves and each other with a cruel and lethal new cocktail called Trank.
I OD'd like 13 times in 1 month because it's it's hard to adjust to it.
It's made by cutting heroin and more often fentanyl with a powerful animal tranquilizer called xylazine.
The xylazine is really making us look like zombies, like physically look like zombies.
Highly addictive, Trank is swallowing neighbourhoods whole.
This is like a drug central right here. I used to live right there on that corner.
For years, addict Jose Castillo lived and more than once almost died on these streets.
Oh my God, yeah, it's an open air market. Like it's literally a third world country in the United States.
Police are powerless here. Trank dealers and their masked henchmen run these city blocks.
No, see what I'm saying? Hurry up, pull off.
The use of Trank isn't unique to this corner of America. It's spreading across the country at breakneck speed and even overseas. And while Australian authorities say the drug hasn't been detected back at home, those in its grips here say, let Philadelphia be the warning to everyone. It's a narrow road out for users crushed by the painful weight of unrelenting Trank addiction, and those living the horrors of this monumental American failure know it.
I'm worried I'm going to be another statistic, and I don't want to be like that.
In Philadelphia, David Woywood, 7 News.
Back home now, doctors are issuing a health warning ahead of winter as Victoria faces a dangerous triple threat. They're pushing a new vaccine message to protect from flu, COVID and RSV.
This year's flu season is on track to arrive sooner and with more venom.
We're expecting that influenza will rebound this year.
Every overseas market has had an early peak, that be the North of America, Europe and the UK.
Last year, there were almost 250,000 confirmed flu cases in Australia. 308 people died. With relaxed COVID measures this year, influenza cases are expected to spike.
Combine that with RSV and of course the ever-present
threat of COVID, and it is important that Australians take as much as they can to protect themselves.
The flu vaccine is recommended for everyone aged over 6 months.
The sooner you get it, the better, because sometimes we can have very early flu seasons. We've already seen 11,000 influenza cases in Australia.
COVID cases are also rising.
We've noticed a trend over the last few weeks of an increase in COVID cases right around Australia from a low in January.
Almost 20 million Australians have had 2 doses of the COVID vaccine, but the number drops significantly for those who have had 4 COVID vaccinations. Most GPs will receive their flu vaccines in April, while some pharmacies already have doses in stock. You can also have a COVID booster at the same time as your flu shot.
We have the new COVID vaccine, which is the 4/5 variant for Pfizer, and we have all of our flu vaccines already, so we're ready to go.
Melina Saris, 7 News.
There is more cash on offer to help ease the pain of rising prices. Next, how Victorians can claim up to $500 in the next fortnight. Also, anger over a wild brawl in Melbourne's southeast. Rockin' Rod Stewart's tribute to Melbourne. And just before the weather, how to rent a home and never pay a bond. A community sports day has descended into chaos when a large brawl erupted in front of horrified children. Keysborough's Pacific Islander Community Sports Tournament had to be postponed after violence erupted. Police were called and the event was resumed 2 days later. A motorbike rider has crashed into a sedan in Melbourne's west, then run away before police got there. The crash happened at Hoppers Crossing overnight. The car's driver suffered minor injuries. The rider, believed to be a male, fled the scene, leaving his mangled bike behind. A second round of the Victorian Government's power-saving bonus kicks in next week. The $250 cash offer will go some way to helping households battling soaring energy bills, but there are other ways to reduce bill pressure.
Households are facing a big budget headache, but there are ways to slash costs. Step 1 is putting your power bill under a microscope.
Really what you're looking for is your daily supply charge, so how much it's going to cost to supply electricity to your property, and then your tariff per kilowatt, so what it's going to cost you for the energy that you do use.
Staying loyal to your energy provider costs the average Australian $168 a year. Just 13% switched providers in the last 6 months.
You could save between $200 to $300 a year, and the savings could even be more if you're moving from a standing offer contract to a market contract.
The Victorian government gives $250 to households via its energy comparison website. Round 2 starts Friday next week, so if you haven't already applied, you can double dip with the existing bonus still available until midnight, March 23. That's $500 cash for filling out a form. When it comes to appliances, this little label is key. Heating and cooling are the biggest guzzlers, responsible for up to 40% of a household's electricity consumption, followed by fridges and freezers, clothes dryers, washing machines, TVs, and gaming consoles. Switching those appliances off at the wall can lead to big savings.
Any appliance that uses a remote is a good way to determine whether it's going to consume more standby power.
Adjusting the temperature on your heater by just 1 degree can also cut running costs by up to 10%. For long-term cutbacks, there's another government incentive, $1,400 in cash back and interest-free loans for new solar panels.
If you own your own roof and it's not heavily shaded, then solar is probably the most cost-effective way to quickly get your bills down.
Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Rod Stewart has entertained Melbourne while paying tribute to one of our own, soccer coach Ange Postecoglou. Rod Stewart is a die-hard fan of Scottish club Celtic, the team Postecoglou coaches. The 78-year-old music superstar thrilled a packed house at Rod Laver Arena last night. Sport is next with Tim Watson inside the MCG, and Tim, the Magpies coach, is learning from an AFL legend.
Mitch, Craig McRae is finding inspiration from an old mentor to take down the Cats. That's next. Also, a Demons trio ruled out, plus big concerns over a premiership defender. The Bombers clear the runway for an exciting round one debut. Ross Lyons throws a rival under the bus, revealing how they've found a diamond in the rough. And a push for AFL players to make a grand entrance like the NBA. Welcome back to the MCG. And impatient Damien Hardwick is expecting an instant impact from Richmond's two big off-season recruits, while the Blues are embracing big expectations ahead of tomorrow night.
Forget the premiership window. On the eve of a new season, the Carlton shop window was left in pieces by a 3 a.m. smash and grab thief, although a new year brings new hope at Princes Park.
We feel a lot more comfortable with where we're at in terms of the knowledge of the players and depth needed to be able to execute what we're after.
The arrival of Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper have many tipping a top 4 resurgence for Richmond.
We don't be patient. We just expect to play our best footy straight away. We're an emerging side. We're not the side that we were, but we're more importantly looking forward to being a side that we want to be.
Before the Tigers and Blues lock horns at the MCG.
The old bull, the young bull, mate.
Carlton great Anthony Koutafidis faced off against Premiership Tiger Josh Caddy in a not-so-friendly game of mini-golf for charity.
Yes, there's yours, Josh, over there, mate.
Kuta cautiously optimistic for his Blues.
At their best, they're really a top 4 team, but whether that consistency is there or not, we'll find out in time.
As for Tom De Koning's contract status,
stay with Carlton, Tom. Stay with Carlton. We want you there. We really do. A lot of players get offered more cash elsewhere too, but if he feels like the club is building something special, I wouldn't leave.
Carlton's conservative approach with Sam Walsh will continue, the club officially ruling him out for at least the opening month of the season. At Essendon,
congratulations, you end this week.
Jaden Davey delivering twin brother Alwyn with the news of his round 1 debut against the Hawks. Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
Patrick Dangerfield is leading the charge for a radical shake-up to the players' dress code on game day. Tom Brown is live outside the rooms ahead of the season opener. Tom, you've got exclusive details.
Tim, this concept is immensely popular, as you can see in the American sports, popular with fans, popular as a feature on social media in the build-up to games, and popular on the broadcast. Now, AFL players, I can reveal tonight, discussed this idea at the recent captains' meeting. Some of the top players, including Dangerfield in the game, now specifically pushing for this concept. That is the right to wear their own gear to the ground. Of course, players would get an earn from it. Clubs are a little bit reticent at the moment, just want to protect their own sponsors, but players could even specifically push for this right in the upcoming collective bargaining agreement. Dangerfield's a big fan, and Geelong will trial a form of it with their own club apparel this Friday night. Now, Tim, the MCC this season is all about improving the visual experience as you arrive here at the MCC. This is a hallowed area where players go into the change room. So much so, it's a little bit bland, this area historically, in terms of all the concrete, but this year they've installed these incredible digital signs and TVs behind me. It allows clubs to tailor their content, sponsors, video, players, all part of an eventual plan to improve this visual experience as players arrive here at the MCG, and to top it off in the future, players pushing for the right to wear their own elaborate outfits, which would become a huge feature, particularly on Thursday and Friday night football, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Still on AFL, and the Demons are sweating on what could be a big injury blow ahead of their clash with the Bulldogs. Mitch Cleary is across all the details, and Mitch, there's real concern over Stephen May.
Well, Tim, it's now seen as severely unlikely the fullback will play with a fresh calf injury. It happened earlier this week. May reduced to the stationary bike at training today. A final call to come Friday, but it is set to be a major setback against the Bulldogs' 4 tall forwards. Officially, the Demons ruling out 3 premiership stars for Saturday night. Jack Viney, Bailey Fritsch and Christian Salem given their own setbacks, but it was good news for 2 youngsters. A pair of D's debuts, Judd McVie and Bailey Laurie locked in. Now the task set on exploiting the Dogs' 4 talls.
Certainly risk in playing that many talls in your forward line, and we think we've got some ground level players that will be able to do that.
Once a Lee Matthews pupil when these words launched a Brisbane dynasty.
An Ardich classic line was, if it bleeds, we can kill it, and we reckon Essendon can bleed.
Craig McRae with his own shot at the Premiers and an old teammate.
Lee Matthews is the save, it bleeds, we can kill it. I thought it might be a bit early to say that, but Chris might get a laugh at that.
The last defensive spot down to Billy Frampton or Nathan Murphy, a call likely to hinge on Tom Hawkins' fitness.
Chris, he's one of the masters of the late withdrawal, so I don't know if you watch that, but he does it nearly every week.
Braden Maynard copping a corked thigh through friendly fire. Cats recruit Jack Burrows unlikely to play, managing an ongoing calf concern. Hit by an injury crisis, Ross Lyons set to call on teenage forward Anthony Caminiti 32 days after signing from Carlton's VFL.
I don't want to throw Jack Silvani under the bus, but he come home. I don't think he thought he saw the dad as opposed to the St Kilda list manager, and he said, Caminiti really played really well on Wiedering.
Ross forthright on his leaked coach's box audio.
There's certainly no forced apology.
Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Lewis Hamilton could drop a Formula One bombshell at the end of the season. The 7-time world champ is believed to be weighing up a massive move from Mercedes to Ferrari to finish his career. It's just over 2 weeks before the roadshow comes to Melbourne for the Australian Grand Prix. Mitch, congratulations to our 7 News colleague Abby Jelmy and her partner Kane Lambert after the arrival of Lewis James. Abby says everyone is happy and, more importantly, healthy, with the Tigers already eyeing a potential future father-son recruit. I'm sure he's going to have great endurance too, Mitch. And, of course, tonight, Footy's funniest show, The Front Bar, is back at 8:45. Tonight on 7, Joel Selwood and Gil McLaughlin are the special guests.
Looking forward to that. Thank you, Tim. We'll see you tomorrow. Renters may soon be able to avoid paying big bonds when they find a home. Still to come tonight, the new scheme that could reduce the costs for tenants. Also, Jane Bunn with the forecast. Jane, how's it looking tomorrow?
Well, Mitch, it's warm. We've got lots of sunshine, but then there's rain early on Friday. The full details are next.
Hello, tonight on The Latest, 60 years of saving lives. We'll take a look back at the very first Lifeline phone call. A feature-length report from Philadelphia, a deeper look at that scary flesh-eating drug, plus ones to watch. The favourites ahead of the AFL season opener. When it breaks, we'll have it live, The Latest at 10:55.
Tenants will never pay a bond again under a new scheme that promises to put cash back in their pockets. It's an overhaul of a system that currently requires renters to pay thousands of dollars to secure a home.
With vacancy rates at record lows, tenants face unprecedented pressure. Now a new scheme promises to alleviate some of it by removing the need for a holding deposit or bond.
So those thousands of dollars that they put in, they no longer have to pay that.
Instead, renters pay a subscription for a current or new property, an introductory $3 a month, reverting to $30 a month, allowing them to move from home to home without waiting for bond returns.
So it's not uncommon for tenants to have more than one bond within the bond authorities at any one time.
The system helping landlords too, paying a bond equivalent for property damage or rent arrears.
The whole internal of the property had to be gutted and redone.
Her investment property trashed a year ago, Amanda Lahn is still waiting for a bond refund, with many landlords forced into tribunals to recoup losses.
That couple of $1,000s could really come in handy.
Tenants in existing leases could have their current bonds refunded, with billions being held in trust around the country. It could free up cash to help with moving costs. The Consumer Action Law Centre warns householders, though, to be careful signing up for new financial products. They should read the terms and conditions and be aware of any fees and charges.
Just the $2.99 monthly fee, and that's it.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Now here's Jane with the weather.
Thanks, Mitch. Last night's local storms over southern suburbs delivered humid air to all of us by the morning. That led to a massive foggy low cloud, misty over the city, thick around Avalon impacting the airport. That lifted into gloomy grey low cloud and some haze out there. When the sun came out, it was lovely but still hazy. The city only reached 23 as it clouded over again late afternoon. Outer eastern suburbs were nearly 10 degrees warmer, reaching 31. The generally high humidity does continue this evening, so not great for going to sleep, but it eases in the early hours of the morning as the wind flicks noisily. The foggy low cloud gradually turned to sunshine before sheets of higher clouds swept through. Thunderstorms developed up here on the eastern ranges. There was a big difference in temperatures between the southwest, where it was cool, and northern and eastern Victoria. High pressure to our east encourages that warmer weather, while the remains of a weak trough make it humid and cooler in Victoria's southwest. Cold fronts are rolling through just to our south. We'll have the top of one of those arrive late tomorrow night. There's a small high pressure system to follow, then another front just in behind it. As we get the top of that first front, we'll see a band of light rain later Thursday into Friday. This is a few millimetres for the south, nothing north of the divide. That small high moves through on Friday, pushing a surge of heat across Victoria on Saturday. That next front just in behind it, so the heat does not last. The south is chilly on Sunday. Even the cooler air penetrates into the north. Around the nation tomorrow, northern and eastern Australia fairly quiet now that a climate driver called the MJO has moved away for the next week or two. The front brings gusty winds to Hobart, showers mainly in the morning. The front that cools it down here on Sunday just brushes Perth tomorrow. To Victoria, sunny in the north and east Gippsland, warm to hot there. Cloud thickening from the southwest over to western Gippsland. Expect a spit of light rain in the afternoon, more persistent near the coast at night. Westerly winds strong and gusty in the south. Closer in, the day is great. We're warm with lots of sunshine. The wind picks up though. It turns into a breezy to strong westerly in the afternoon and evening. By 11 p.m, there is light rain coming into southern suburbs. Then it spreads right through around midnight, lasting into the early hours of Friday, a couple of millimetres. The city reaches 28, lots of sunshine but windy in the afternoon and evening. All dry at the MCG and warm. Light rain begins after the game. To the 8-day outlook, that rain lasts into Friday morning, then sunshine returns, 24 in the afternoon. Howling winds on Saturday, 36, before a late afternoon dry, cool change. That leaves us about 20 on Sunday, showers passing through. Sunny tomorrow, windy top of 28, then light rain on Friday morning, Mitch.
All right, thank you very much, Jane. And that's the way it is this Wednesday, the 15th of March. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night. Yeah.